Because I tell you what, when seconds matter, people get hurt.
Yeah, and when seconds matter and there aren't guns and it takes a while for police to get there, people die.
Hey everyone, Pizza the Hut here. So I was watching High Impact Vlogs video. Well, he used to go by High Impact Flicks, now High Impact Vlogs, about that Freitas guy. And the same thing happened over here in Fresno at the same time. So I'm going to play clips from his video, and I'm also going to throw the link to his full video down below. And then I'm going to play what happened over here in Fresno about a ban on CCWs in, I believe, the City Hall. But the guy that was equivalent to Freitas over there, his name is Gary Bredefield. He's one of our council members. He put up real great arguments, but still lost by a lot. So hopefully it doesn't happen over there. And, well, let's get to it.
But that's irregular. Today, I'm going to be putting my feelings aside.
Delegate Freitas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for the point of personal privilege. You know, on the first day that we were actually voting on some things substantively in this chamber, one of the first things that we did that I thought was pretty shocking was we actually voted to delegate the authority of this chamber off to a committee whose membership we had no idea of at the time in order to make some pretty important decisions that would affect not only this entire body but our staffs as well as people that are going to come and visit the Capitol. And one of the authorities that we were granting to this committee, whose membership we were completely unaware of at the time, was the ability to make gun policy for the Capitol. And then we saw within the Joint Rules Committee a very abbreviated meeting with very, I guess, no agenda. I don't think a chairman had ever been selected yet. And the rules that came out of that committee made the decision that none of our constituents, and to my knowledge none of us, would be able to carry a firearm in the General Assembly building or within the Capitol building. And while some people might think that's a great idea, we heard some very compelling testimony from a young woman today who had been brutally raped on a college campus because she had actually obeyed the law. She had kept her gun at home instead of actually bringing it along with her in order to be able to defend herself. And one of the things that I would ask everybody to do is when you make a decision, especially when you decide to delegate a decision to a committee and not even have the courage to stand and vote on it, you are essentially telling people that you're no longer allowed to defend yourself. And my very simple question to that is, who assumes responsibility for their security at that point? If something bad happens, are the members that are actually going to vote to disarm that law-abiding citizen now going to take responsibility for the security if something bad happens to them? Because if they're not, I think there's a problem with that. And at the very least, take responsibility for when it's your policy and your idea. Don't try to pass it off as if it was the Capitol Police's fault. Because as someone that actually grew up in a law enforcement household, I know that law enforcement has to live at the business end of everything that we do within this chamber. So if it's your idea and if it's your policy and if you think it's a good idea to disarm law-abiding citizens and to make them choose on whether or not they can have the means to protect themselves when they come up and to lobby us, fine, then go out there, go in front of the cameras and say this was our idea and we think it's a good one. But don't blame the Capitol Police for it. Because when people show up and they're frustrated and you've now directed the attention toward them, that's not fair. So for the rest of the chamber, I hope we will at least stand up and actually be proud of what we believe. Don't try to find scapegoats and don't try to divert responsibility onto other people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
No more guns at Fresno City Hall. The City Council has banned concealed carry weapon holders from being able to carry in the building.
We will be creating a gun-free zone. Bad guys will be able to come in here.
Currently, you can't take a gun into most government buildings, airports, schools, state parks, casinos, fairgrounds, Sullivan Arena, Save Mart Center, Chachansey Stadium, and many other sites. So we adopted a program similar to what other cities in California are doing in terms of addressing the same thing.
People who get CCWs have extensive background checks. They complete firearm safety courses. They're trained with their weapon. They have to understand the laws and safety requirements regarding the use and storage of their weapon. As has been said, statistically, they're some of the most law-abiding citizens in the country. What's the criteria been for issuing these CCWs? How many times have CCW permit holders illegally brandished their weapon at City Hall? How many might have been saved if any of those victims had had a CCW to protect themselves? Would you have advocated for them to have a CCW permit? What is the protocol
No,
at this
I'm
point?
gonna interrupt it. Chief, do you mind sitting down? I think we're done with the cross-examination.
I don't think so.
I do,
I'm
I do.
asking the
Chief,
questions.
Please.
Council President?
How many more questions do you have?
I have some questions for him. This is a very important issue, and I know we differ on it, but I think that I have the right to ask our police chief, who the mayor is relying on to back this ordinance, to ask some questions about these kinds of questions. These are appropriate questions.
Council member, we have spent several hours in closed session. We've asked
So
the
what?
chief
I don't give a fuck.
several questions in closed session.
Doesn't
We've
matter.
had
We're out in the
significant
public. I
time.
want to ask the chief a question.
How does that make you feel? Well, it doesn't matter how it makes you feel.
These are appropriate questions.
Council member, we have spent several hours in closed session. We've asked
So
the
what?
chief several questions in closed session.
Doesn't
We've
matter.
had
We're out in the
significant
public. I
time.
want to ask the chief questions. I'm representing the people, and I have a right to ask those questions.
A couple of questions, council members.
No, not a couple of questions. I'm going to ask my questions.
When my officers are at an event, we do not allow CCW holders at the event. And there's a reason for that. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. When guns start coming out and we don't know they're police officers, we have to engage that person. And that takes the officer out of the fight.
Where has that happened, chief, in the country?
It happens every time we have an active shooter situation or we have where it's a law enforcement issue. Is if there's a gun there, we've got to secure it. I cannot walk by somebody who has a gun, says, I'm a good citizen and I have a permit. I can't just walk and take his word for it. I got to stop. I've got to detain him. That officer's out of the fight. So now you're limiting my officer's effectiveness by allowing too many cooks in the kitchen. I agree with you. These CCW holders are good citizens and they do good work and I support them. I have signed over 100 CCWs since I've been chief in just the few short months I've been here. But when we're doing security and I'm in charge of security, then we restrict that so I know who has a gun in the building when my officers are engaging people. Because I tell you what, when seconds matter, people get hurt.
Yeah, and when seconds matter and there aren't guns and it takes a while for police to get there, people die.
And as always, re-stomp that groin.
Because I tell you what, when seconds matter, people get hurt.
Yeah, and when seconds matter and there aren't guns and it takes a while for police to get there, people die.
Thank you. The council has spoken.
Effective today, no more concealed weapons at Fresno City Hall. Only officers stationed at the building will be allowed to have them, as well as off-duty and retired officers who enter.
Is this plan perfect? No, it's not. This is a major start, a dramatic improvement over what it was before.
Before the vote, most of the public speaking against the measure. Councilman Gary Bredefeld says this turns City Hall into a gun-free zone, and criminals will take advantage.
This has happened in movie theaters, churches, schools, events at school board meetings, in city council meetings.
To illustrate, Bredefeld played a 2010 news report where a man fired his gun at a school board meeting, prompting Councilman Miguel Arias to cut it off.
You don't cut any video. That's my video. You don't cut that video.
We got the point, council member.
No.
Hey, fuck you, man!
Cut any video. That's my video. You don't cut that video.
We got the point, council member.
No, you don't cut my video, Council President. Thank you, Chief. You've answered
Just
my
for the
questions.
record, though, I am not disarming anybody.
You are.
Well, like I said earlier, go check out High Impact Flicks, now known as High Impact Vlogs, which is pretty funny to me because, you know, the whole High Impact Vlogs, HIV, makes me laugh every time.
You know, sometimes when things seem their darkest, you just need to try and stay HIV positive. But if you want to be so HIV negative all the time... Knock it off! Right now! This isn't funny! At all! Are you sure? Yes! Are you HIV positive? Ah!
Well, have a great day, everybody.
Re-stomp the groin.
Because I tell you what, when seconds matter, people get hurt.
Yeah, and when seconds matter and there aren't guns and it takes a while for police to get there, people die.
Re-stomp the groin.